Hello and welcome. I am Scrapperlog. We are with Liberty Lass, our level 29 character, 91,000 XP to go to get to level 30. We have 8 million influence because I sold something that was worth a few hundred thousand. And we are finally on a story arc for Ashwin Lannister, the Ubelmann story arc. And so we have to defeat all the soldiers in this office at Skyway City. The mission details are that there's a fifth column raid. Fifth column raid, isn't it supposed to be council? We'll see when we get in there, because it looks like text that didn't get fixed unless they reverted it back to the fifth column. And away we go. It has been such a struggle. It's taken me almost 2 levels to get a story arc. No, it is the fifth column. Hey, I'll take it. I love fighting the fifth column. I wonder if they reverted it on Homecoming or if this was done in live. I'm gonna have to go check. I've done Ubelmann before, and I'm pretty sure, at least on Rebirth, Ubelmann was still council, because I'm pretty sure I mentioned it and said, like, they should have changed his name because Ubelmann is not an Italian name, it's a German name. But it looks like this is fifth column, which is kind of weird because the character isn't encountering fifth column much before this. She hasn't encountered the fifth column before this. She's only been fighting council. In fact, didn't we just fight a bunch of these mech guys that were council mech men instead of fifth column ones in a previous episode? I think that's true. Hey, mech guy is using my energy punches against me. That's no good. We gotta take you out. So it looks like we're about halfway through this level. We probably won't finish it tonight, but my guess is in the next episode or two we will be finishing this level. So what I'll probably do is complete this story arc, and assuming we're already 30th level by the time we complete it, then we will move into Season 3, which will be the 30s. So we got to look around everywhere here to make sure we can find the archivists. And the clue says that the fifth column we're examining some files. Presumably in the filing cabinet we just saw. And there's more fifth column. I like these guys so much better than the council, just because they're thematically basically Nazis, and there's nothing better than punching Nazis in the face. Wow, 2 misses in a row with 80%-ish to hit. And you'd never know what a high percentage I have to hit with all the times I whiff more than once in a row. Twice, 3 times in a row, right? I got some +2s here. These guys are not that difficult because primarily, unless you're looking at the marksman rifleman, primarily the fifth column fire use lethal or smashing, right? Some of the shots of the marksman are cold and will slow you down. And they will reduce your recharge rate and so on. And somebody did mention, because I was saying there isn't any mez defense against slow. Apparently there is some. It's the stuff that fights against a reduction in recharge rate, which is anti-slow. Apparently not many sets have it in their mez defense. So I'm not sure if it actually shows in the combat attributes. Let's take a look. So we don't have it in the status effects. Do we have it in the base? It doesn't seem like there's any way to measure it using their stats. So I guess there are a few sets that do have that. You have to read the text of the various sets to find the ones that do. And I think there are maybe one or two power sets that do. Not sure if willpower does. Certainly not in our Mez defense, as far as I know. The best protection against that is to just have good recharge rates on your powers, and there are some sets that will give you an improvement to your global recharge rate. And there is a vampire. The vampire like to work with the fifth column a lot. Look at that. Missed this guy 3 times out of what, 7? Even though I had better than a 75% chance to hit most of the time. More missing. Yeah, again, you know, other than the fact that we miss too much, when we go down to only 70%, 75% to hit, which is what happens when we fight +2s, this character can mostly fight +2s at this point. There are a few enemy types, like the Devouring Earth, that might be really hard to fight at +2. On the other hand, something like the Council, really, even with all the missing, is not an issue, or the fifth column is really not an issue. And fifth column and council really differ by the color. The council's green, fifth column is red. And by their names, they have more, like, I guess, Latin sounding names from the council and more German sounding names from the fifth column. Let's try to hit everybody with this. Boom. These martial arts guys hit a lot, don't they? And I'm being slowed by the ice bullets. I remember the show Castle. There's an episode where they're missing like 5. They find 5 shell casings, but only 4 bullets. And Castle suggests he's an author and he likes to come up with crazy theories, and he suggests an ice bullet. And somebody mentions the bullet hole. There'd still be, even with an ice bullet, there'd still be a bullet hole. And the one guy says, "Don't you mean an ice hole?" And the other guy says, "What did you just call me?" Kind of cool. Got all of them, but not the dizzy guy. It always seems to happen when I'm doing like an AoE to try and finish off the last sliver of somebody's health. I hit everybody else, but I miss the guy whose health is still a sliver. Doesn't happen always, but it's certainly noticeable when it does. Okay, we got another archivist here. Missed again. And that, by the way, is the thing with 1.35 base accuracy. So we have 1 archivist left to save. So I hope you guys are enjoying. If you're playing City of Heroes, a few people have mentioned, you know, their characters and stuff. Let us know. What kind of character are you playing? What level are you? What archetype? Are you playing your favorite archetype? One person said that they're like me and they like the sort of aggressive attack powers, blasters, or melee characters like brutes and scrappers. Yep, I like the aggressive playstyle, and it's really City of Heroes that turned me that way. I used to be the most like super conservative, play it safe kind of player on computer games in particular, and City of Heroes kind of taught me the joys of being aggressive, the joys of Scrapper Lock, guys. Just continuing on and not caring. Look at this. How many times am I missing here on 75% to hit twice in a row again? How many times have I missed twice in a row in this mission with a 75% to hit? It should happen once every 16 times. It's way more than that. My gosh, tonight. It really does almost seem like the RNG gets stuck. Not in the same number, but it just keeps rolling low or keeps rolling high. All right, let's call Lannister, and he says, "That's odd. I know the fifth column has old roots, but what possible use could they have of World War II documents?" Dude, they're Nazis. Of course they want World War II documents. Apparently, the fifth column isn't satisfied with stealing World War II documents. Now they're stealing World War II historians. Go rescue the guy that they stole, or the guys that they stole. We're going to Perez Park. And fun fact, there is an entrance to Perez Park right here in Skyway City. Almost never used. I almost never use it. And the main reason I almost never use it is that it just Skyway City is a really big zone, and it's usually quicker to take this train from Skyway City to Alice Park and just zip across Alice Park, especially if you have something like super speed. Skyway City is a pain in the neck if you have super speed because of all the vertical relief. It's fine if you have super jump and flight. Of course, back in the day when you didn't get movement powers till level 14, but you were going in Skyway City by level 10 or 11, you could spend 3 levels doing nothing but using sprint and hurdle and swift in Skyway City. However, I will always have fond memories of Skyway City. I very distinctly remember when my first postdoc ran out and I was unemployed for a little while, that I used to come in here and play this game in the mornings before the part-time job that I got while I was unemployed, which was to teach a single class at a community college at noon. And so I would go in there around 11 or leave my apartment around quarter to 11 because it was only about 15 minutes away. So, yeah, I would get up, I would have a leisurely breakfast, I would play some City of Heroes, and I can still remember being up at 7:30 in the morning, playing my character, super jumping through Skyway City along the top sort of level of those highways, and every time I'm there, it reminds me of that and of the fact that City of Heroes really helped me go get through a pretty tough time where I didn't know what was going to happen in terms of jobs and stuff. One postdoc had run out. I'd applied for faculty positions, hadn't heard anything. I'd applied for another postdoc, but it wasn't going to come through for several months. I ended up getting that second postdoc and then eventually a faculty position, but at the time, I didn't know what was going to happen, and I was contemplating possibly having to move back in with my mom and get some sort of a normal job because science just didn't seem like it was going to work out for me. And then I just waited long enough that I kept going and it did work out. But I was having a lot of stress at that point. I was very upset because my chosen career didn't seem like it was going to pan out, and City of Heroes kind of distracted me from all of that. I could log in here and be a superhero and fight villains and enjoy this wonderful game and not think about my problems for a little while. So it'll always have a special place in my heart because it really helped me at what was one of the more difficult times in my professional life. And then again, during the pandemic, I was playing City of Heroes, and I logged into Rebirth, and I was playing my Stalker, and I got to sort of get my head inside City of Heroes where there aren't any pandemics, or if there is one, it's, you know, about Superidine or the lost Richter disease or something like that. And you can cure it with superpowers and a special temporary power, right? And so it just allowed me to kind of forget about. It often allowed me to just sort of forget about my problems for a little while and just immerse myself in a fun game. And so it'll always have a special place in my heart because of that. And I've mentioned this story a number of times. Um, when my postdoc ran out and I was pretty much unemployed, and it was afternoon, and I'm in California. I was in Seattle, and my one best friend, the good Rob GM, he was in California, and so we're in the same time zone for pretty much the only time in our lives, because I've usually been on the East Coast and he's been on the West Coast since the late mid '90s, if not early '90s. Um, and so yeah, it was like middle of the afternoon, and I was logged in because my postdoc had run out, and it was one of my first days of unemployment, and the good Rob, all of a sudden he logged in, and I was like, "What's going on?" And he's like, "Hey, let's just go beat up. I want to go beat up some bad guys. I'm glad you're on. Let's go beat stuff up." And I mean, we were like, I don't know, 15th level or something. So we started beating stuff up. Maybe we're in our 20s. We started beating stuff up together, and I said, "So what's going on? Why are you, like?" He was like, "I'm ticked, and I want to go beat stuff up. Like, I can't beat stuff up in real life, so let's go beat stuff up in the game." So I said, "Why are you ticked?" And he just gotten fired. Like that day, he was told, just clean out your desk and go. And so he was mad, and he got home, and then he's like, "All right, let me just log in here and start beating stuff up." It was a nice little bit of a coping mechanism for him, I think, and I was using it pretty much the same way. And so we just stayed together for like an hour or two, maybe more, just beating up villains. Other people logged in, and we're like, "Hey, we're beating stuff up. Who wants to join?" It was a good little way to get our frustrations out in the video game rather than trying to, I don't know, punch pillows or go to a kickboxing class or whatever other people do to get their frustrations out. I get them out by beating up supervillains. And with a brute or a scrapper, man, it feels so awesome because you really do feel like you're beating the crap out of things. It's a lot of fun. So this game will always have a special place in my heart because of that. Now the irony is that a few months later, so this would have been late July, early August in 2004, by, January or so of 2005, I got tired of the game and left. But that was because they really didn't have the game balanced right, and they didn't have difficulty sliders yet. So when I came back, they had put the difficulty slider in, and right, this is why this is good. This actually may be a little bit too easy, but this is pretty good. It's not boringly easy the way it would be if these guys are all white cons, right? And I think you can see that it's actually better for us with these enemies anyway if they're +2. Now, I'm not going to go through tuning my experience to such a degree that I change the difficulty setting, the notoriety down here based on what enemies we're fighting, because it just seems ridiculous. I'm not going to keep doing that. But, man, as soon as we get enough accuracy enhancements on our powers, we're definitely going to need to go to +2 for almost everybody, because really, other than something like the Circle of Thorns with their debuffing that makes it impossible to hit, other than that, there really is no reason for us to fight anything below +2. The other issue is that a lot of these missions would then give us +3s, and that's still a bit beefy for us. It's a little bit much. But it's not going to be long, guys. Whoops. Where are we going here? This way. It's not going to be long before maybe level 32 or so we'll be ready to go up to +3. To +2 missions, I would think, and +3s will be something we can take pretty regularly. Just not quite yet. Because you have to realize a +1 lieutenant is orange, a +2 lieutenant is red. If we go up to +3, both the lieutenants and the bosses will be purple, and all of our enemies will be red when they're +1 to the mission. If we go up to +2 missions, right? +3 is brutal. Right, because it goes yellow, orange, red. That would be +1, +2, +3. So everything would be red except minions would be red, and everything else would be purple. And I think that that's just a bit much. Usually, isn't there usually a room over here in the corner? And sometimes there's. Yep, this is always the room that I miss. No matter how many times I end up on this map, I always forget this room. And that should take care of the mission. Not too bad. So as you guys can see, with something like the 5th column at only +1, we could do a mission in like 10-15 minutes. And so what was starting to happen to me as I got into the mid-30s with white cons and a scrapper, especially once I had my super reflex powers in and slotted, even without a lewd, but certainly once I had a lewd, I was like, nothing could touch my character. The on-level guys before the global defense nerf, they couldn't hit you. They were floored. So I keep using that expression. What I'm going to do now, we'll talk to our contact, and I'll explain what I mean by floored. Okay, so I just received an anonymous tip that the 5th column is still investigating World War II history. Seems there's a warehouse with a bunch of FBI files. So as you can see, this again is this idea that we have a lot of missions that are just. This would have all been one mission, right? They're stealing files, and here's the story. In the earlier story arcs, when they were shorter, but in these later story arcs, it takes several missions, right? This is the sort of decompression that I was talking about last time. Okay, so we're going to Indy Port. So, what do I mean by floor? And there's also a ceiling, but we don't necessarily talk about that all the time. So, when you're rolling to hit, the computer simulates the rolling of a D100.00, right? That is, it's almost like you're rolling 4 dice, a tens, a ones, a point ones, and a .01s. And it will generate numbers between 0 and 100 on a uniform random distribution. So there's theoretically equally likely for every single number between what is this? Military range. We don't need range. For every single number between let's use this train here. For every single number between 1 and 100 to come up, or actually 0.01 and 99.99. I don't think it can roll 100. So it rolls numbers from 0.01 to 99.99. And it rolls them randomly with equal probability. The developers created a critical hit and a critical miss category, right? That is, if you roll a 0.01 to a 05.00, if you roll between 0 and 5, it is an automatic hit. And if you roll 96 and above a 95, 95.01 and up, it is an automatic miss. It doesn't matter what your 2 hit is, right? And that is why you can see here that our maximum 2 hit, when it pops up, is 95. It'll never go over that. Even though, right, you can see like this is a plus 7.5%. So I can show you when the build-up comes up. We're going to put the build-up up, get it to 95%, and then I'll pop this inspiration. It's not going to go up to 102. It stays 95. You can never be over 95% to hit. And you can never be less than a 5% to hit. Because even if the calculation is that the guy has like a -10 to hit you, still, if he rolls a 0.01 to 5.00, it will hit, right? So when you put somebody down to the point where they can only hit you on a 0 to 5, that means they have been floored. They have reached the bottom floor of the possible chance to hit that they have against you, right? And it can't go any lower. So when I say I had the enemy minions floored, it means I had the 2 hit on them was as low as it can be, right? It's literally the only way they hit is if they roll that 5% chance that is an automatic hit no matter what. Okay. And I could say when I have the 95%, although most people didn't use this phrase other than me, you've been ceilinged, right? Which means to say it's as good as it can get. So here we go. This is a 95% chance to hit. Now I'm going to take this, right? We added 7.5%. I'm going to fire the same attack. It's still 95%. It can't get any higher than that. My character was ceilinged. Adding more accuracy doesn't improve your chances. Now, it still can be worth running the accuracy if somebody's going to debuff you, because then it will subtract. And the way the math works is if we were at, say, 102.5, right, and somebody applies a minus 7.5 debuff, it'll keep me at 95. It doesn't subtract it from the 95, right? So it keeps track of the raw numbers, and it only applies the floor and ceiling sort of function after doing all of the calculations, right? The calculations essentially are, we get some text box here. The calculations are kind of inside the parentheses. Right? And so if this is, so if we have, say, a 95% to hit with, like say we have a 75% to hit, and then build up gives us plus 20, so that gets us to 95, right? But then they debuff me by 10, and then I add a plus 7, right? They'll do all that in here first, and then they apply the floor ceiling function on the outside after all of the other calculations are done, right? And so it can be worth, even if you see that you're at a 95, adding an accuracy inspiration if you know you're going to be debuffed, because that will kind of cancel out the debuff and you'll still have the 95% to hit, if that makes sense. Hopefully that does. If it doesn't, please go to the Paragon Wiki and look up how to hit is calculated. I gave a very simplified, slightly inaccurate version just to explain what I was talking about, okay? But I'm not giving the real statistical numbers for it and the exact equation, because that's beyond the scope of this playthrough. Right, and this is why you'll see me. I don't even look at these numbers. I mean, I look up at the numbers when I'm missing a lot, going, what the heck's going on, and that kind of stuff. But if I'm fighting somebody and I see that they're hitting me, and they're hitting me with these dark melee or something, and I start whiffing, I pop a yellow. They hit me a couple more times. I pop another yellow. That's to counteract all of their stacked debuffs to try and keep my 2-hit well above 75, because as you've seen, when your 2-hit is only 75, you miss a lot, and more than 25% it feels like. And you always miss at the worst possible time too, which is probably why you notice it so much. So again, as I mentioned, probably a bunch of times, I play this game by feel rather than by the numbers. I'm aware of the numbers. I know how to do the calculations and stuff. I mostly don't bother to do the calculations because it's not really necessary to do that, right? And to play well. But if you want to min max, you have to do the calculations, right? To find out exactly what you need to do. Okay, so we have a balcony up here. Let's see. Yep, this is a defeat all, right? So we got to beat up everybody. What's the other word for that? There is, so like when I call lead out missions, other people call them escort. A defeat all mission, there is another word for that. If anybody knows what the sort of official word term for that is, we'll post it in the comments so that I can at least mention it when I'm saying this is a defeat all mission. I can't remember what the word for it is. They have terms for all of them, right? The one that's like defeat the boss and his minions, that has a term for it too. I can't remember what all the terms are. If there's one that's click all the glowies, right? There's a term for that. I don't remember all the terms. I know that there were player names and even developer names for each of these types of missions, like the escort mission. But I don't remember what they are. I just have my own little names for them. And that's because I didn't know what the official names were, or at least the unofficial, like, agreed upon player names were, until after I'd already made up names for them myself, like a lead out mission. I didn't know they were called escort missions, or didn't pay attention to that fact until in my head they were lead out missions, and now I just call them that. Right? And that is the end of this mission. Another quick one. Enhancement converter found, right? So we have now 14 of those. We could sell for 60,000 each. That's quite a bit of money, but since we already have 8 million, why bother? We got some new recipes. Let's see. We have 2 kismets now. This is defense, right? Is this defense or it's not resistance, right? Yeah, it's defense. Yeah, these are ones I might possibly use. We'll see. All right, let's head out. And he says, so the FBI had full files on all the heroes from the World War II years. That's not surprising, but why would the fifth column be interested in Thunderhead? So we're gonna have to say Thunderhead in the next episode, I think. But we're about half hour in, and I think that's enough for today, guys. I hope you've enjoyed our little romp through City of Heroes and the Ubelmann storyline. I'm a big fan of this story arc. I've enjoyed quite a bit, and I hope you are too. We're about 3 beads from finishing up this level and going to level 30. And as I say, we'll finish this arc. Now, if this arc finishes before we finish 29, I will go back and try and see if I can get Lorenzo Tate or Marvin Weintraub. I might even turn XP off and see if I can get them to give me a story arc, and we'll do that story arc. If not, once this story arc and level 30 are accomplished, we will simply move on to Season 3. But if I can get the other story arc, which is which one? I looked it up. Oh, it's Devouring Earth. One of the first Devouring Earth story arc. If we can get that, I would like to get it, because we haven't even seen the Devouring Earth yet in this playthrough. Alright folks, that's enough for today. I hope you have enjoyed, and until next time, I am Scrapperlock, and this has been City of Heroes.